Hey everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're getting a chance to sit down with former CFL linebacker Marcellus and Boomakat Bowman. Marcellus is the founder of Eat, Sleep, Peak Training located in North Carolina. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're looking for more athlete coaches and breakdowns, don't forget to hit that notification bell. We are powered by Spirit Leaf Waterdown, located at 64 Hamilton Street North in Waterdown, Ontario. If you're looking for Canada's top choice for cannabis, look no further than Spirit Leaf Waterdown. Alex and his crew will help you out with all your THC and CBD needs and is available for curbside pickup. Don't forget to like our Instagram and theirs and you'll be able to save some money. Thanks everybody and enjoy the show.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Marcellus Boomakat Bowman. It has been quite a minute with this individual. He did used to play for the second best football league in the entire world, the CFL. Played for those dirty Hamilton Tiger Cats, but those Winnipeg Bombers. It is Marcellus Boomer.
Tiger Cats don't bathe. Apparently.
I love my time in Winnipeg and Hamilton, so he said dirty and all of that. So,
but yeah, how are things going, my man? It's been a long time no see. We've obviously chatted through Instagram and through other stuff, showing different things, but things are good over there.
Life is good, man. Just staying busy. Obviously, this pandemic has made me accelerate some of my plans when it comes to starting businesses and different things like that. So that's rolling right now, which I'm really happy about. But life is good, man. Life is good.
Excellent. So like because obviously it's been quite a bit since you've been up in Canada. What year was it that you decided, okay, we're moving back to the US? When was that?
That was 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was done playing in 2014. Stayed for another year, and then the work visa got canceled. So I came back at the beginning of 2016, actually.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Excellent. I remember that. So for everybody who doesn't know, Marcellus used to work at the facility that we don't speak about on this podcast.
No, we don't talk about them.
But we don't talk about them.
Yeah.
But Marcellus and I, and Mike, we all worked together at the same facility. We had a blast. Marcellus was like one of those elite athletes that we brought in onto the training team, which was amazing because it was a different type of training that we were able to see up close and personal. And it was always a pleasure to have you on the team. But unfortunately, like that work visa gets canceled, and you're like, okay, got to deport these guys back to the US. This is unfortunate.
But it was all good. I think it was time to come back to the US. We actually started out in Niagara as my wife was getting her master's. Then we moved down to where we are now, which is North Carolina.
Very nice. Excellent. So how have things been? So you talked about building businesses, but like there was a point where you kind of went back into the commercial gym setting before too.
Yeah. So when I first got down, I did what I knew best, which was personal training. So I did that from 2016 to about mid 2017. And what happened was when I was coming back down to America, I hit up my old strength conditioning coach from college, who was now, or at the time, the head strength coach for the Bears, the Chicago Bears, so Coach Scalzo. And I hit him up and asked him about, what is it like to be a strength coach in college? And he keeps it 100% real. So he let me know his thoughts, and he said he had a guy down in Auburn. So I got in contact with a guy down in Auburn. He said, well, we don't have any slots now, but, I'll keep you in mind. So I personal trained from 2016 to 17, mid 2017, took off to Auburn and started collegiate coaching. So I was in the commercial gym for a while, but then I transitioned to collegiate strength conditioning for a little while.
Do you find that some of your formal football connections have helped you with either personal training clients or even getting into like strength and conditioning further, and give us a little bit of your experience with that?
Football in general has done a lot of favors for me. I'm not going to lie. Having that experience has carried some weight and allowing me to, get opportunities that maybe it would have taken a little bit longer for me to get otherwise. So those connections with, and that's what I tell a lot of whenever I speak to high schools and different things like that, and it's not an athletically focused conversation. I tell them it's all about relationships, because when you maintain relationships, when you make good impressions on people, of course, it may not pay you back immediately, but that return on investment is coming eventually. And that's essentially what happened for me. So it pays some dividends over the course of time.
So let me ask you this, because I think we've talked about it before, but like, obviously I know like the dream, obviously maybe at one point was the NFL. So, but like, how did you kind of transition from like high school to college, and then you ended up in the CFL?
Yeah.
Like, so how did that transition happen?
So Youngstown, Ohio, Liberty High School is where I grew up. And most people go to the Big Ten around there, Ohio State, Penn State, and everything like that. But Boston College came calling. So initially, I thought I was going to play receiver, but my high school coach was like, "Your hands are not good enough to be a receiver.
you can't catch a brick."
Exactly. Exactly, right? So he was just making a point about how hard they throw the ball. My hands were a little too inconsistent. So I thought he was telling other recruiters that I was a receiver. The whole time he was saying that I was a safety. I never played safety a day in my life. I never even backpedaled. So he was telling other schools that. Eventually landed on Boston College and went there from 2005, 2009. We had some good years. Had a lot of players go to the NFL. I actually got a shot in the NFL. I signed with the Denver Broncos out of college as a free agent, as kind of obviously didn't make it too long there. And then about 2 weeks later, I got a call from my agent. He was like, "Hey, a team up in CFL wants some tape. Should I send it to him?" I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And I asked him what team it was. He said the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Didn't know where Winnipeg was. Didn't know where Blue Bombers was. In America, we don't have a lot of information about other places. I'll put it that way. So I had no information or understanding about Canada other than where it was. But yeah, he sent that. They liked what they saw. They brought me up there, and I was actually the 6th string linebacker, if that's even a thing. Basically, I was a cone for the first. I was a cone for the first couple of practices, and then I finally got my opportunity. And by the time the season started, I was playing. And the transition from, say, playing safety down here and then transitioning up to playing linebacker up there, all the thinking was prior to the snap. After that, it was just football. So the transition really wasn't that big for me. There was some growing pains going from, receiver, not receiver, but safety to linebacker. But overall, it was a smooth transition. Yeah, it was a great time. Like I loved every second of the CFL, like every single second of it.
Yeah, like the CFL is a pretty awesome league, especially like, and I hear that from stories of all different types of players who come out of that league as well. Like they just have nothing but great things to say about it. Like, did you find like the transition as far as like, even like the field being obviously a little bit bigger, like the differences are like the food, like on how the substance of it?
You don't notice it. At least for me, I did not notice the size of the field as far as it being any different. From a strategic standpoint, of course, the coaches make an emphasis about it, especially when you first get there and they explain all the differences in the size of the fields and the angles you have to take when you're in pursuit. Because some younger players coming up from America to Canada will take a sharper angle, and then not really realize the running back or the receiver can keep running laterally. So after you kind of get used to some of the angles and, of course, the speed of the game, because I think it is faster, it's a faster pace. The fact that you have to waggle makes a big difference. But once the ball is snapped, from a defensive perspective, once the ball is snapped, you're finding the ball. Like you go where the ball is. So it really doesn't matter how big the field is because you're chasing the ball anyway. So what's more important is where your other players are around you strategically. Like, do you have contain? Do you have help? Do you have somebody inside of you or not? So that's the only difference with the extra player. But yeah, once the ball is snapped, it's just football, really.
So life in Winnipeg is a little bit different than in the U.S., I guess you could say. Like, what were your experiences like out in the peg, as they call it?
One, never knew it could be that cold for that long. And I'm from Ohio, so I'm not from paradise by any means. I'm from Ohio, but the biggest difference was once I decided to stay there year round was just how long you don't see grass for. That was just unbelievable. But as far as the people, actually, I'll explain it like this. I was going to a meeting about a business opportunity, right? With some supplements and different things like that. I found the house, was a bunch of cars parked outside the house. The garage door was up. I walk into the garage door, knock on the door, and a teenager opens the door. I shake his hand and say, how you doing? He said, hey, how you doing? I'm good. So I walk in, I take my shoes off, and there's a few people sitting on the couch, and there's a lady that comes out of her kitchen, drying her hands off from doing the dishes. And, you know, she says, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm good. How are you doing? She said, okay, I'm good, blah, blah. And then it just gets quiet. And I'm like, so is this the meeting for blah, blah, blah? And she was like, no, this is not the meeting for that. I was like, is this whatever Portage Avenue? She was like, no, that's across the street. And literally, that's when I realized, like, Canada is than America. I'm 230 pounds, you know, bigger than I am now. I walk into the wrong house. They let me in. I take my shoes off, get comfortable, I introduce myself. There's kids in the house. Without me getting arrested or worse, you know? And that's just something that wouldn't happen in America. And I always tell my American friends, that's like a microcosm of Canada. Like, the people there are nice. They're different. They're less confrontational. I won't say non-confrontational, but less confrontational. So from that perspective, me and my wife always talk about, like, minus the weather, that would be home. Like, if we really didn't mind, you know, or we embrace the cold a little bit more, that would be home. Not Winnipeg per se, maybe, but Canada.
Yeah, maybe not Winnipeg, where it's like winter eight months of the year.
Legit. Beautiful people, though.
Yeah, you could find yourself in Calgary or like Vancouver, or let alone like some nice place out in the east or something like that. There's some good pockets, absolutely. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because obviously, like, going back into like training aspect, as far as, like, you know, getting to collegiate level, college football, like the type of facilities that they have made for those athletes coming up to make sure that they have every tool available to them.
Yeah.
Like, what type of like especially as a trainer, kind of walking into like the garden of heaven, like, what's that like? Because like they put so much money into these things.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So my last rep performed in college was in 2009. When I got back into collegiate coaching was 2017, so a little less than a decade. Which, when I walked in, I remember walking in and just seeing just all the different things that they had. And when you go into the closets and all the things that other companies send them that they don't use, it's literally one of those things where, one, companies are sending these schools things to hopefully get them in their facility so they can say, hey, Auburn Tigers, Ohio State, LSU uses our product, which is a big deal. Then the other side of it is that in certain situations, there's almost no budget. Whatever you need, you can have. And it's one of those things where, like, there's not too many other situations that I can think of in life where you have literally everything you need from a resource standpoint to succeed. I remember talking to the head strength coach at Auburn, and he was just, you know, kind of giving me the tour of some of the things they had there. And he would every once in a while mention how much something costs. And it was so nonchalantly 20, 30,000 per piece of this thing. It was per piece of this. It was some kind of like a power plate, but a little bit different. And then they had this other force plate thing that was new for me at the time. That was another, I don't know how much money they were spending on that. And it was just like, it was just unbelievable. It's one of those things where it's like, how do you fail? You know, how do you not make you have these meetings? Which, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into that. So I don't want to oversimplify it. But yeah, walking into those facilities and just seeing what's available to them. From a supplement perspective, I'm big on supplements and everything like that. Same thing, unlimited supply of everything. You go into the locker room and it's just they got refrigerators and big screen TVs and big nice couches and just like all the snacks lining the walls, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Aaron, this is what we need for a jiu-jitsu facility one of these days with all that podcast money that we've been making.
For sure. I mean, like you got to think like other sports or like even like other students at the school or just be like, oh, these fucking football guys, they got all like they suck the budget out of everything. But there's no leftover money.
It kind of works like that, but it kind of doesn't because football brings in most of the money. So the reason why you have such awesome facilities now, it's like football pays for a lot of how awesome that campus looks, right? Some new buildings and just new advancements. And even what's interesting is to get students to come there, students that have nothing to do with football probably won't even go to the game. They'll bring them to the facilities just so they can see the bright lights and the shiny things.
Yeah.
And, just talk about the big names that kind of walk through these hallways and different things like that. So football really brings in a lot of money, and people are mostly students. When football is that big of a program at your school, the students want it to be a big deal. So they kind of wanted to get more and more outrageous of a concept. Now, what I've found is that students that go to schools where sports aren't that big of a deal, or their team is trash, they typically have an issue with the concept of, the amount of money flowing through, those hallways. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
So speaking of money, there's a lot of, there's been talk like back and forth for years, especially with like a lot of Division I, like, college basketball brings in like a lot of money at a lot of universities in the US, and especially even like we touched on even college football. And I think a lot of people are talking about like, should college athletes, should they be getting should they be getting paid or should they not be, or like, what's your take on that whole issue? And I know you've probably heard it over the years, what's going on. Like, give me your thought process on that.
So as far as paying collegiate athletes, I'll put it this way. When I was at BC at Boston College, we had to stay on campus all year, right? All 4 years, I should say. Then the new coaching staff came in, they let us move off campus for a little bit, or for our last year, I mean. And they would give us checks for the rent, the food, for the cable, just little things like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember sitting down in my locker and seeing the seniors walk in after they got their checks, probably like 2 or 3 days ago, new tattoos, a new iPhone came out, they all had iPhone. It was just a lot of, you can see where the money went. So as far as
not to rent and food.
What they would do was they would get a girl, either their actual girlfriend or a girl with a lot of food on her whatever she paid for that semester. Yeah. And they would just get her card and use it that way.
Hey, baby, come on over.
Exactly. So a lot of started to happen around that time. But anyways, you saw that when you give a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old with no real responsibilities money, it can go a lot of different directions. So I do think that athletes should get money. I do think they should get compensated to some degree. I personally think it should go into like an account, and they shouldn't be able to access that account till 3 or 4 years after graduation. So you handle business. If you have 3 or 4 of the best years in that school's history, you got a lot of money in the bank, but you have to go ahead and start normal life without getting that money. So it doesn't hamper you as far as like how you understand how to handle money as an adult. So I do think they should get compensated, because I think there was an article not too long ago that talked about, I think it was Texas or LSU or Clemson, where each player on a team, I don't know if it was basketball or football, was like $200,000, $300,000. Like each one was worth that much, and that's a lot of money, and that's beyond what the scholarship's worth is. So I think they should get compensated. I just don't think it should be cash. Here, bam, here's your $7,000 this month for having a great season. I think it should be something put in an account, and they can access that a couple years after graduation.
It's almost like a college pension for like after you're done playing.
Exactly.
I think the other thing a lot of people don't realize is with like even like Division I athletes, they're like playing in the NFL. Not all of them, or they're playing like Division I football at college. Not a lot of them are getting into the NFL. Like the percentage is fairly low. Like not everybody jumps from the division. Like the all-stars that stand out are going to get drafted.
Yeah.
But Beyond that, like, you know, I would say, I don't know what the percentage of like Division I or even like Division II, the percentage is even higher, that aren't going to like another professional, like.
Chances are, you are going to be very normal in a couple of weeks after graduation. Like, life is going to get extremely normal, and it's a very foreign feeling when that happens. But I think that's one of the misconceptions that non-athletes kind of have, is that there's, you know, athletes are spoiled, they get too much, and so on and so forth. And I don't think that's the case at all. What these athletes are doing, what they're going through, you don't see the athletes crying too often, but strength coaches see that, right? The position coaches see that. You know, you don't see the athletes talking about, I have to be on these antidepressants because I can't handle the stress. You know, because for example, I play safety, my freshman and sophomore year, I've been on play action. So play action, I'm coming up playing a run, they throw it over my head, I get yanked out of the game. It's embarrassing, one, to make or have a bad play in the game. And then you go home into your dorm, you turn on TV, you turn on ESPN, you're watching ESPN, your game comes on, the highlights, and you're getting beat again. Like, you're seeing yourself, you know, in the worst part of your day. And then after that, you go back into watching film the next day and you watch that same play again. So that's a lot of, you have to have a certain level of mental and emotional resilience to handle that. And I think a lot of people won't be able to, or aren't able to do that and still handle the academic side of things.
Yeah, because you talked about it where we've talked before, where, you know, like injuries, obviously plays in the game, all those types of things, those things come back to haunt you. And then again, we look at all the stuff the athletes are going through that people don't see. So when we look at like gutting through practices and all the injuries that happen and all that kind of stuff, like, now kind of being as a coach and seeing it, how do you kind of like coach new guys ahead to being like, okay, if they're dealing with injuries or they're dealing with these things, like what are the kind of tactics you take from your own experiences to build off that?
So that's my biggest thing. So my career ended with injury, right? I had cartilage, basically arthritis in my left knee, and it was just a wrap. I did everything: the stem cells injection, platelet-rich plasma, prolotherapy. I injected everything into that knee, and nothing was working. So when it comes to injury, a lot of injuries, especially when it comes to the joint, are preventable. And there's a lot of things you can do if you address it in time. What happens in football is that because pain is such a large component of the sport, it becomes normalized, and we don't differentiate between pain that just, you know, is this going to happen, and actual pain that's going to result in something more serious. And what I tell the athletes is like, hey, you're gonna have a muscle, you know, pain in your muscle is going to happen here and there. Soreness is one thing, but whenever you have pain in your joints, right, there's never a scenario where that's okay. That's just not the way the body works, right? So whenever you have something like that, you have to handle that aggressively. And the ones that take heed to that, you know, they make the adjustments necessary, but the ones that don't, you see them limp for a long time. And that's the biggest thing I think about when it comes to like the idea of availability. Like, the best ability is availability, right? That's what they say. But availability isn't if you are in the game or if you're injured and out of the game. To me, availability is, are you in the game and are you the best version of yourself, void of, you know, turf toe, plantar fasciitis, chondromalacia patella, you know, tendinosis, so on and so forth. Because it's at that moment where you can really, you know, maximize your potential. But there's a lot of athletes out there that are just drugged up on painkillers, and, you know, they numb up the area to get you out there to play. And that's a dangerous game to play. And one thing that I don't tell the athletes when I was coaching, because I didn't want to be enemy of the state, is that but I tried to still illustrate this point, was the athletic trainers, their job is not necessarily to heal you. And I don't want to be, you know, controversial or take a shot at athletic trainers, but in my opinion, the way I view it, their job is not to heal you. Their job is to get you back on the field, to get you back in a competition. Healing, getting back in competition, two completely different things, right? The first rule of healing is to stop the offending activity, right? If your sport is an offending activity, you're in a weird position, right? So from an athletic trainer perspective, they have to do what they have to do to get you back on the field. And that's where you see all the numbing agents. That's where you see all the different types of pills and braces and different things like that they put on the athletes to get them back in the competition. And I try to tell the players that, hey, it's your responsibility. Like, yes, they'll do this and that, but it's really up to you to get you back on the field, because and get you back to your best version of yourself as well. Because if you just think that this ultrasound is going to heal your knee, doesn't work like that. So I had to break it.
I feel like an example from basketball, like the NBA Finals a couple of years ago, when Kevin Durant came back. He had he had Achilles issues.
Exactly.
I think that might have been a perfect example of what you're mentioning. There's a difference between, hey, we're gonna heal you and fix that injury, and we're gonna get you back on the court or get you back on the field. And I think that's maybe an example of maybe too much too soon, because
exactly. And it's not hard to make an athlete feel good. They got some pills for your ass. Like I'm talking about, you go into the athletic trainers, they pull that drawer open, and it's just options, like things you ain't never seen before. And I remember even when I was when I was with Winnipeg, and they had a needle this long, it felt like it was this long, and they was injecting that thing into my toe to get me in the game. And it was just like, they got some options to get you to play and to get you to perform for that 2 to 3 hour period. But the ramifications of that can last a lot longer. So, I try to make sure these athletes they approach it in as professional of a way as they can in their 18, 19-year-old mind, right? So we're just trying to instill little habits and little bits of perspective that hopefully will pay off later.
Yeah, I think there's also definitely a difference between and I think you would agree with this, there's being hurt, because everybody who's playing football, they're playing a sport, they're beating up their body. Everybody's hurt to a certain extent, and then there's hurt, and then there's injured.
Yeah, exactly.
There's definitely a line between those two things. So it's like, if you have turf toe, or you have knee ligament issues, like that's an injury, and that you need to address that. There's hurt and your body's sore, and it's like, there's recovery modalities for that, but there's no needles in the world that'll help you with, working through like an ACL tear, or like Achilles tear like Durant did in the NBA final. There's nothing you can do about that.
That differentiation, that's a really big deal. The ones that get hip to it early enough are typically the ones that perform at the highest level, because everybody can perform well first 2 or 3 games of the season, but is that attrition after a couple games, you get beat up a little bit, whatever the case is, then that's when things start to add up. And when the demands of the sport requires everything to be functioning at a high level, like you cannot play full speed with a bad knee and expect the other joints not to try to make up for the lack of productivity for that knee, which means you have compensation in other areas, which can create, some other issues. So for example, when my left knee had an issue, my right toe, or the plantar fasciitis in my right foot started to pop up, right? And then after that then it shot across to my other foot. So just the compensation was just ping-ponging across as the work was still getting done, but the amount of work that each joint can handle was far beyond what it was supposed to. So you had a joint that was only at 80%, that other 20% was now in my foot. So my foot was doing 120% of the work. And then once that one went, then it went to the other foot, and so on and so forth. So you really want to, when it comes to joints, as aggressively as possible, address that and get that up out of you.
Don, do you feel like that's the athlete's responsibility to explain their condition, to make sure that they're staying, you call it on the bench, if you want, not being active, or is it that pressure from the coaches? Because I remember stories of when I was working with another athletic therapist who was working with the Leafs at the time, and literally the player has an injury, coach would come in and be like, how long is he out for? And it'd be 3 weeks. Well, can you make it 2?
Yeah.
There's literally these conversations happening between athletic trainers and coaches trying to get these guys back on the field.
A negotiation. It's I don't know. I'm not his body. Cut that down to a week and a half, and you got yourself a deal, kid.
When I was playing in college, I remember my senior year, because I beat myself up. I was masochistic. I had a high pain threshold. The way I played and the way I trained was pain-based, right? And by the time I got to my senior year, I was pretty beat up. And I remember in summer training, I got called into the head coach's office, because I was sitting out the 7-on-7 that we were doing, the optional 7-on-7s we were doing in the afternoon. And basically what he was doing was trying to, make me do the 7-on-7s. And I was telling him, Coach, I'm barely making it through the workouts. I got just enough juice to do that. I feel like it'd just be best for me to go ahead and just sit down and maybe help the younger kids or the younger athletes for the 7-on-7. And we had a conversation for probably about an hour. and he was not budging. And then the next day I get to the facility, and the athletic therapist came to me and like, hey, we want to try something different. So they gave me some different pills and everything like that. I felt better. But you can tell, I felt like they had a conversation. Young me, I didn't quite know, but I felt like they did, right? And then also when I became a coach, I wasn't in every conversation, but you can tell the conversations were being had as far as, and we just got to get them on the field. And it may be one of those things where you're just that important to the team, or they don't trust the secondary guy, or they don't want the reports coming out that this player is not present, so the other team won't game plan against them. So there's a lot of reasons as to why they'll do it. But once again, it's not in favor of whatever's best for that athlete, right? A lot of times athletes want to play, but if there's ever a situation, especially in college, when you're not getting paid and every game matters so much, if you're not playing, that's, or you don't want to play, that says a lot, right? Because you're that injured, in other words. So it's there's some less than ideal things that happen, long story short, when it comes to getting players back on the field. But I mean, that's the give and take of the game. The game can give you a lot, but it also can take a lot. It's a big deal.
Gotcha. So I don't know about you guys, especially in the US, there's a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
Right. But
yeah, if you haven't noticed,
like we're in a heightened state of like emergency, like lockdowns are continuous. They come on, they come off. It's a little different. But I've heard in some places like yourself, like where you guys are, it's a lot different of a world.
Yes.
And how's that experience like? Because it's been like almost close to 15, 16 months for us. So
I literally don't know how you guys are doing on everything. I have zero idea. I mean, like I said, you guys are kind of non-confrontational. I think this is the only time where it may be working against you guys as a whole. But I've been trying to live as normal of a life as possible. When we were locked down, that's the first time I was like, this doesn't feel good. Like I'm not a stressful person. I'm not a person that takes on stress and kind of holds it in. I find a way to kind of get it up off me and try to, get on about my business. Last year was the first time I was like, man, this stuff is really heavy. Not so much the threat of the virus, because I don't fear the virus. I don't fear the whole process, but it's just like all the stress of everyone else. Every time you turn on something, you're just being inundated with it. But now that things are starting to lighten up, and basically we're, for the most part, kind of normal, I guess you can almost say, it feels good. Now, of course, you have a lot of people who are still just like they just want to have a fight. They just want to kind of argue, give you a bad look and things here and there. But overall, it's awesome compared to what you guys are.
It's great down here. I don't know about what's going on up there.
Yeah, half of my feed on Instagram is American and the other half is Canadian, just because of how much time I was up there when I first got Instagram. So I'm hip to both sides, and it's just like, man, things could be a lot worse.
I think there's different ways, I think, of handling a situation. And I know, the scientific evidence and facts and all that, that's one thing. And then how a government decides to interpret it, to put it lightly, is an entirely different thing, where it's like, hey, we don't want people together. Let's close playgrounds, even though that makes no sense whatsoever, because you're outside and kids are playing and, stuff like that. I mean, other things like, okay, like I think it's a lot of people are probably annoyed with, the situation, and I think how the government's handling it versus like what's actually happening.
And that's the weirdest thing. I haven't, and I don't know, maybe it's just the circle of people that I have access to. I don't see anybody like, they're doing the right thing. I haven't seen
nope.
Like, this is exactly how we should handle this. Like, it's maybe a few people in the older population, but even there, some of my older clients that I had when I first started training, they're like, okay, this is kind of getting a little ridiculous now. Like, it's hard to maintain any level of normalcy when you don't know if the kid's going to be in school, out of school, if I can go here, not go there. They understand social distancing. How many people can I have over for my birthday party? How many people can't? It's what I feel like is that all of the information that we had access to from all the thousands of studies that was done on the immune system, on nutrition, on sleep, on exercise, have been completely ignored in the name of overprotecting the immune system to the point of a fault, right? But I mean, that's just my opinion. I'll keep it there. I won't go too far with it, but yeah, it's an interesting situation overall.
No, and I agree. Like, and yes, everybody's going to approach everything differently. And
yeah,
again, I think we always, like, as fitness professionals, all of us, like, together, I think the biggest thing we can always advocate is saying, hey, you need to eat healthy. You need to have a healthy immune system. You need to get outside and be active and be able to do certain things. Again, as the weather's getting nicer, you should be outside doing as much as you can, right? So, like, if you're compromising your own immune system by doing certain things, probably should stop that. And if you are compromised, hey, what are the things you can address to build that up? I think those are the things that are not being really talked about enough. And
that was one of my, I forgot who I was speaking to, but I said that was one of my biggest disappointments in the entire process with all the Western governments, is that there was not enough of an emphasis put on what we can do, right? There's a lot of what we can't do. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Okay, awesome, I can't do that. Now, what can I do? Like, if you take all the options from someone and you don't provide them with, a replacement somehow, then that's not really, to my understanding, the most effective way to handle a crisis, right? Give us some actionable steps to do that we can go ahead and put into action so that, we can start to fight this in our own homes while we're there, as opposed to just kind of sitting and waiting. Because we all know from the research that sitting and waiting and sedentary lifestyle and a lack of activity and so on and so forth and abundance of stress is all contrary to what probably should be happening.
That's going to compound the problem, I think, as well.
Exactly.
I think, yes, you need to eat properly, you need to sleep properly, just all the things that you do, like, if you're, training and you're working out. Is all that stuff going to stop you from potentially getting COVID? No, but with that said, it's going to give your body, you're going to keep your body and your immune system as strong as possible in order to, if and when something does happen, the effects are minimized.
Get who was it? Minnesota came out with a study saying that those who are more active have shown to have less severe of a reaction to infection. So, I mean, thankfully the science is coming out now. It's becoming more of a common thing that, there's epigenetic control in this thing where, like, your habits can have an impact in a positive way. And like you said, does it make you bulletproof? No, nothing will make you bulletproof, but we're working on chances right now. And I think it gives us the best chance.
Yeah, well, you know what? Just before the fall comes, we'll be back, and hopefully we'll be out of our houses, and we can be fine. Right?
One of these days.
No, you gotta make it out your house before the fall. You cannot go into another winter. For me, that'd be hard to watch online.
Yeah, it's hard to watch Aaron at home drinking right now. Just angry.
Listen,
hating the world, throwing beer bottles in his backyard.
Yeah, no. I went for a 5K run today, and I was like, I proved it again to myself. I'm like, running sucks. Plain and simple. Running just sucks. It's not fun.
I got runner's high one time. It was my junior year in high school, and I never was able to get runner's high again. It's way too much pain preceding that little bit.
That little gratification of runner's high is like, fuck this.
It doesn't give back enough.
So why do people run? Why do people do this? It's like, would you rather? There's other things that you can do to maybe get that high. Maybe not healthy, but there is
there seems to be better options, more economical options.
There is more economical options, right, Aaron? At Spirit Leaf Waterdown, located
That is true. 64 Hamilton Street North in Waterdown, Ontario.
Shout out Alex and his crew there. They got all the CBD and THC needs that you need. This is the difference. This is the issue in Canada right now. You have the devil's lettuce, that we'll call it, which is now legal. And, jiu-jitsu and, martial arts and gyms are now illegal.
Yeah, it's interesting. The things that stayed open during the absolute worst of it, when it was like, okay, we all about to die today. Like
LCBO
has to stay open because Aaron needs drinks. What else is he gonna do at home?
I only have a beer once every week.
If anybody wants,
making it sound like I down a 6-pack every day.
But no,
that's a lie.
Interesting seeing what stayed open and what closed. Anything that had anything to do with health and fitness and goal setting was shut down, and everything else that basically did the opposite was readily available.
Oh, also, Aaron, by the way, this isn't a podcast. This is actually an AA meeting. We're
No, it's an intervention.
Me and Marcellus were actually talking offline. We're like, I think we need to talk about Aaron's drinking.
Oh, fair enough. No, it like, again, I think like everybody at the beginning of this whole thing, where everything just needed to shut down to kind of like figure out what it was.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Hey,
Yeah.
shut it all down. Makes sense. All right, let's go. Right. But then it's just like for Mike and I, where it's just like, we like, technically we couldn't even do a personal training session outside, like 6 feet apart from somebody. Like we wouldn't be able to do that. Right.
Yeah.
And there was a point where, but I could do a golf lesson. This is how fucking stupid it got. So I could do a golf lesson.
Yeah.
Right. So I could, hey, all right, take a swing, blah, 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 do your thing. But if I were to bring weights or like teach somebody how to do a squat, that was borderline illegal. It's like, what are we doing here?
Aaron, did you not know that dumbbells give you herpes?
Yeah. I remember going and it's like literally going to like Walmart, for example, and seeing 5 different people pick something up, put it back, next person come pick it up. And it's just like, you can go to Walmart and just run your hands across the aisles and just touch everything. But then if you go to, say, a gym with 25% capacity, that's just an insane concept. Like that just can't happen. And it's just, that is just the lack of logic, I think, is where they lost a lot of people, which may kind of result in some of the pushback, I guess you can say, outside of probably what would have naturally happened.
What would you see, like, now we're talking about gyms kind of, and me and Aaron have talked about this a lot as a topic, but gyms in like a post-COVID world, like, what do you think they're going to look like? Are they going to be like the big facilities that we used to work at where there's like hundreds of people going in and out of there today? Or they're going to be like smaller, more boutique? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, maybe not necessarily in Canada, but but like maybe in the US, like, what do you see as
honestly, I think
trend
to get back to normal, it may take a while. But even from what I see here, because when I first went back into a gym, when was that? When I first got here, I was going to the gym in March until they shut down for a little bit, till like April or May they shut down. And then I started going again to a different gym, probably in November or September. And it was for the most part normal. Like, it wasn't, I mean, you had the social distancing. So like some of the machines had a sign on it, you couldn't touch it. You had to go to every other machine. But it was for the most part normal. And what you saw was just the younger demographic of people there and less older people, right? Simple as that. Or the older people would come at a certain time, which I don't know, just combine all the people with the weakest immune systems all at one time. Maybe that's the best thing, I don't know. But either way, it made sense as far as how many people were there. And that gave me confidence to know, like, okay, things are going to get back to normal probably a little bit sooner than I originally anticipated. But I don't think there's going to be any big difference. Maybe the biggest difference I'll see, I think we're going to see is how many independent trainers you'll see. So I think trainers from that perspective will stop going to the gym and start doing their own thing and start running their own little, whether it's boot camps or what I'm doing, starting out in my garage and different things like that, and just kind of going that way. So from a personal training perspective, there may be some differences, but outside of some capacity limit for the gyms, I don't see much changing up here, or down here, I should say.
Yeah, let me ask you that then. Why do you feel like a lot of trainers are going to go more into that independent realm? Is it more kind of like not having the reliability of a facility, worried about getting shut out again? Like,
I think it's a couple of different things. So one, being employed by a box gym, I think is an amazing experience because it teaches you a lot of things really fast. Like, you get clients, and you get to learn all the little ins and outs of personal training and coaching in general really fast. But for those who have that experience, I think this pandemic forced us, I guess you can say, into a more of a ownership mindset, where something we probably wouldn't have done before. So when I left coaching, originally I was going to go kind of to the corporate world and then work my way into starting my own business. And the pandemic shut the corporate world down immediately, and then kind of thrust me into this side of things as far as running my own business. So I think that, it doing that for me, I know that it's done that for a lot of other people. And even when I go back, look at my wife and my mother-in-law and our 2 kids still go to the gym we won't mention, the one down here. And for them, they enjoy it. They're not looking for any service. They just want to go there and get out. But from what I hear when I speak to those trainers there, a lot of them was like, I don't enjoy it. Like, I'm here for 12 hours a day, and for the most part it was pretty empty. Like, I was just standing here cleaning machines for the most part. So I think a lot of people are getting used to taking ownership over their life in general, at least in our field, and as a result, they may not want to go back. Because for me, I don't know how well I respond to having a boss again, unless it's a great situation. Not that I can't work for someone else, but it has to be the perfect situation. Because right now, I really enjoy the amount of autonomy that I have, kind of making my own decisions.
Sorry to interject, but you're that scarred from working with Aaron all these years?
No, it was not Aaron. I ain't gonna say who it was.
Aaron, it's okay.
I was gonna say he would only come back and work for me again. That's what I was gonna say.
I don't know. I was like, I've worked with Aaron all this time. I don't even think I want to go back and work with him.
Mess up my neck for a while. I never told you that, but you did mess up my neck for a while. But outside of that, it was all smooth sailing.
Listen, that wasn't my fault. It was your own fault.
What?
No, we're gonna get to that right now. Marcellus won a grappling match against Aaron. Aaron, would you like to give us a breakdown of that situation?
Okay. We're gonna break this down really fast and tell the truth of this whole story too. I don't want to get muddied up at all. Okay. No. So here's the reality. Marcellus challenged me to a grappling match. Realistically, I didn't think it was a good idea because I was his employer at the time. However, I accepted it. I accepted the challenge.
Yeah.
Then I made the rules, and this is where I screwed up. I made the rules. It was like 5 minutes. I would submit you. Those were the exact rules. So I was like, I gave myself a time limit.
You're calling your shot. You're that cocky.
And this is where I screwed up. I'm like, in 5 minutes, I will sub you in 5 minutes. However, I never took into account, well, you can't, it's hard to sub a guy who doesn't want to fight you. So
on everything, I remember when we was like, okay, let's do it. We were standing by the personal trainer's locker room. We're in that hallway, right? I was talking hella shit. I was just talking. I could tell I was getting to you, so I was just like letting it rip. And and I was like, yeah, I can pin you or whatever. I don't know what I was saying, but then you was like, well, let's do it.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, well, you just name a day, and you was name a day, and I was like, oh, in my head, I'm like, wow, he's like legit kind of going a little bit longer than I anticipated.
I'll block off a one-on-one meeting in our schedule, and
I remember like after it was like solidified that we were going to do the match. I remember so first. He was sending me like threats online. The people getting choked out.
I'm surprised Aaron wasn't sent to HR over this. Oh wait, we don't have HR, but go on.
Get like mental emotional warfare. I was getting on everything. I was getting nervous because I was going on YouTube that week and I was looking up like how do you not get choked out? Like, I was literally looking up, and I remember seeing these videos, like all these videos, like big buff dudes and these little like Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys just choking people out like left and right. I couldn't find any videos that gave me any information. So I was like, I just gotta push. I just can't get locked in. So anytime you'll grab me, I'm snapping away and snatching in. I remember you got on my back and you started to get a I don't know what kind of headlock.
I got into the rear naked, yeah. But then I rolled off and
as the time was going out, because I remember kind of getting lightheaded as they were counting down 10, 9, 8, and I was literally like the Saved by the Bell type shit. Like I was legit on my way to the upper room. But yeah, that was, and I remember I had the Batman neck for like the next 2 or 3 like days. Just
yeah. I think about that now, where I'm like, yeah, I could have got fired hardcore for that one if he complained.
I never even thought about that. I never even thought.
We don't have HR. No one's firing you, Aaron.
No, yeah. I know, but I'm just like, you think about it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Like, as like a more experienced leader nowadays, like I'm like, yeah, that's not a good move.
Probably not a good idea.
No,
I remember you came to the match in a hoodie with your head down with headphones. I really was nervous, like on everything. If you could see my Fitbit, it was like 137. Like my heartbeat was beating, but yeah.
I don't know. Aaron's probably could have gotten fired for worse. There was the whole fight night at the pool and all that.
It wasn't my responsibility. I was just a participant in that.
You were just a willing participant.
I was a willing participant, and I broke a team member's arm. But I was a team member too, so it didn't matter. Oh, this is before you, sir. So just before you.
Was the first one.
Yeah,
no. Aaron's abused a lot of his employees over the years, me included.
We were team members together.
We're team members. That makes it okay.
Yeah.
Then it was okay.
Yeah.
Because that's when we so Marcellus, like if you remember, like the pool area, like like that big patio and all that stuff. So we had rented an actual like boxing ring. And we moved all the chairs. We shut the pool down for the night. We put the boxing ring right there. And then we literally had a full-fledged like MMA card with I think we had like 6 fights all together.
Highly illegal. Highly illegal, but go on.
And so what happened was, and like we were getting notices from like Boxing Ontario, like we will come there and shut you down and sue you and like all this kind of stuff. Like we were getting like a lot of like information, like places were sending stuff. And we're like, just run it anyways, right? And so like the GM's like, I don't want to know what happened. Like they took off because we had sold all these tickets, everything like that. Like all these members were coming. We had a bar, we had the cash flow, the whole deal. And so the first fight happens and it's 2 girls in a boxing match, and then we changed the rules, right? So it was like a 2-minute round, like a 1-minute standing count, whatever. Like we changed a bunch of rules so it wasn't boxing per se, right? And literally like first 30 seconds of that first match, and these 2 girls didn't like each other, right? Left hook to the head, and she's wearing a headgear too, right? And she starts wobbling. Right, and she clipped her so well, and if she starts wobbling, so Alwyn, you remember Alwyn?
Yeah, big ass.
Okay, so he jumps in the middle of these 2 girls, like to give this girl like a standing 10 or whatever, and then but like it was longer, and so like then letting her get back into it, and then we're like, oh goodness, that shouldn't have happened. And so she kept going.
Who were the fighters? Like who were the fighters? They were just members?
I don't think the girls you knew at the time. I think it was like Anna and Krista. I don't know if you were there.
They were trainers.
Yeah, they were trainers at the club, right? So they were trainers at the club. So it was all staff. Basically.
This is before my time as well.
I would have loved to see that.
And then basically like, then there was other individuals like had two other guys that didn't like each other on the team, right? Had a match. Like,
this is just like settle your beef.
It was like settling beef. Honestly, that seemed like it was. And then one of the guy that I was matched up against, we were good. We're good buddies or whatever. And we're kind of like, before we get out there, we're like, okay, like, we got to work together, like, 50%, like, have that honest conversation. Right. And so we go out there, we got the lights, we have music, we have everything going. Right. And the adrenaline hits you. He hits me with one leg kick. I'm like, that whole 50% went out the window.
Yeah, straight up.
Motherfucker, that's killed.
And like, I ended up in his guard, and he tried to armbar me, and I just came across and just started pounding him in side control. It's just like, So
that escalated.
Yeah, it was good though. It was fun.
Aaron,
but I'm done now. I'm retired.
Aaron committed a crime on gym property, we'll say.
Yeah.
Roughly, I could say that.
Yeah. Roughly. That is hilarious.
Yeah, but we were a little like more tamed back then, like when you were with us. So just a little, like if you look at like the show, I think we had one of the apexes of the show, and then we started coming down.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Underground.
So one question I want to ask you before we start to wrap things up. Yeah. Now, there used to be a conversation of like when we look at who the best athlete was.
Yes.
Where it was football.
Yeah, is Nestor here?
And is that like now? Obviously, you've been, you're back home for a while. You've trained a bunch of people since then. and all that kind of jazz. You've seen more things. You're older. You're more educated on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Do you still hold the same sentiment?
Without question. It's not even close as far as what group or what sport contains the greatest athletes. It's football by far. Soccer, not even close. MMA, track and field, even if you do the decathlon and all of that, whatever the case is, not even close. You name it, horseback riding, NASCAR, I don't know how else you want to put it, but there is not one sport that comes close, basketball, that comes close to the demands that football places on its players. And when it just comes from a pure performance standpoint, speed, strength, agility, hand-eye coordination, power, endurance, is not even close, man. Sorry, Nestor, if you ever watch this, no.
No.
Not even.
Why? What does he say? Like the most athletic sport is
He
like power walking or something? Like
he said soccer players. And I don't know.
Well, of course, because he plays soccer. Everybody's gonna say their own sport.
Like, I get it. Like, okay, you play soccer, I play football. Let's just kind of, have our stances. But at some point, you got to go ahead and tell the truth. And it's not even close.
I don't know. I definitely think football's up there. I would say like decathlon, just because looking at different perspectives of different things.
No.
You need to be good at pretty much everything.
You're not gonna get tackled in a decathlon. That's the one thing. Like you're not built to take contact.
I'm gonna power walk through that tackle and then
honestly, I'm not even sure what's all in there. I know you gotta jump, I know you gotta throw, I know you gotta run hurdles or something like that. But I think everything for the most part is in one plane of motion. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think so. Because there's no sideways based action.
No sideways.
Yeah.
You don't have to really react to your environment that well. You just have a moment where you have to perform. So it is all those other little aspects that make, to me, that separates football players. And I'm talking about from the 300 pounders all the way to, the 175 pounders, there's a significant difference.
There's definitely a lot of applications of different attributes that you need definitely to play football at any level. What you were just mentioning. I can't think of one attribute that is not necessary. Now, of course, not attribute needs to be top 10, right? You don't need amazing aerobic condition, right? You need more glycolytic, anaerobic. But as far as what sport requires the most demands on the human body from a performance standpoint, without question.
Do you feel like and I'm kind of like with the whole concept of, obviously, like when we look at like head injuries and all that kind of stuff, do you feel like the equipment is getting better for better protection for athletes, or they're adding more protection around the players so when these contacts do happen, it's actually better for the person opposing the hit compared to actually receiving?
Any other than the equipment advances, I don't see any real honest. I'll probably never get a job in college after this, but I don't see any.
There's like 6 people watching this podcast.
But I don't see any real honest attempt to make the game safe and fair. They made the game so that it's almost impossible to play defense. You have to basically just sit there and wait for the receiver or the running back or the tight end to come and essentially run you over in the name of preventing concussions. Now, of course, there are some egregious things that took place. Even when I watched my old highlight tapes, I was like, damn, that's a little much. Like, I wouldn't do that at 34 years old, like young 25, But the helmets, I remember I tried on one of the newer helmets when I was like when they first put them in their lockers before training camp, before the players got them on. And those things, it's comfortable. It feels great compared to what we had when I was playing. You can definitely see that there's major advances from that perspective. So the helmets, the way the shoulder pads, some of the rules of the game. But for me, when it comes to head injuries and long time post-football effects, I feel like the emphasis should be on the nutritional supplement side of things, right? Because, for example, there's research that shows after a concussive event, creatine levels in the brain drop, right? We all know that, for example, I think 60% of the brain is fat. Half of that is omega-3s, right? So we know that, okay, there's a nutritional component to it. The research says that, for example, if you are sleep deprived and your cortisol levels are elevated, it actually has it causes atrophy in the brain, the amygdala, the frontal cortex, the HPA axis. So we have this information that says that sleep, major component to brain health. Nutrition, major component to brain health. And you can supplement the same thing too, CDP choline, phosphatidylserine. There's a lot of other supplements out there that deal with neural regeneration, so on and so forth. And I think us just trying to change the rules of the game without changing the habits of the players, or at least mandating, hey, you have to take this supplement every day. Like you play a game where you lead with your head and you get within a practice 70 to 80 contacts head to head, just doing drills. And to not supplement that, we supplement everything from the waist down, but nothing from the waist or from the neck, we supplement everything from the neck down, but nothing from the neck up. To me, it's like, well, why not? Because we're not talking about, how dangerous this game is from the knee perspective. We're talking about for the brain, right? That's where the tragedies are coming in. So if we really want to do everything we can to help protect these players, I feel like we need to address it from a habitual standpoint as well, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that's, you brought up the biggest thing. It's like, how do you protect the players? And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, nobody wants to see a game like football disappear or anything like that, but you just want to figure out how to make these things as safe as possible so everybody can enjoy them for generation after generation after generation.
Yeah, and walk away and have a good, like, I don't like to use myself as an example because it's anecdotal and you obviously need a larger sample size to really speak truth on certain topics. But even when you look at the general population and you look at the cognitive health, of the general population, you see that it's going down. So there's clearly something in our environment that is not pro-brain health. And we have the information there. So I feel like if you play a sport that is a contact collision sport, it's even more imperative that we do what's necessary to at least fortify the brain with what it needs to function at a high level, just in general, but especially coming back from these concussive events.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's the biggest thing when you look at, like, whether it being in fighting or even in NFL or anything where there's contacts, especially to the head, where you're finding a lot more athletes that are, they're there to make their money. And then if they can make their money and then get out, that's the idea. They want to get out as fast as possible. So like guys like Floyd Mayweather, right? Awesome defense, right? Like not smart with his money, but got a lot of it, right? You look at Andre Ward, right? Retired, undefeated, right? He's 33 years old, but he's still at the peak, right? But he could fight, but he doesn't want to. He's all about, no, I've moved on. So I think you're going to get a lot more as the generations move on. I think we're going to get a lot more athletes that are going to have necessarily shorter careers because they're focused on, okay, I'm going to make as much money as possible, be as good as long as possible, and then I'm going to get out while I still have my wits about me.
I remember talking to my cousin, and he played in the NFL for 6 or 7 years. And he told me about how players didn't like the old players where they were like play until they had nothing left. Like every joint was replaced, everything was bad, neck was fused, and so on and so forth. He said a lot of players, especially after they get that second contract, it's like, okay, I'm good. Whenever I get cut, it is what it is. Like there's a lot of players that love the game, want to play as long as possible, but there's also a lot of players that, hey, once they get, set financially, it was like, well, I kind of checked that box already. Now it's just quality of life. It's kind of it's taking a different place in people's lives as time goes on. Is it a good thing, bad thing? I mean, it's up to the person, but you can definitely see the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So Marcellus, before we wrap up, I'd like you to kind of like, just, is there anybody you want to thank, or obviously like sponsors you want to shout out, like what's going on with you as you kind of move forward?
So right now, like I said, I started my business, Eat, Sleep, Peak, online or in-person training. That's my logo right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Bang.
Pyramid.
Bam, pyramid.
Going into 3 levels: Eat, Sleep, and Peak. So I take a very synergistic approach to muscle gain, weight loss, performance enhancement, I want to make sure that every box is checked so that you can get the most dramatic transformation and in a reasonable amount of time as well. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm affiliated with Body Logics and their supplements. So if you want 20% off, you can use my code Coach Boom, COACHBOOM, and that'll get you 20% off. Once again, Body Logics, BODYLOGIX.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Marcellus, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. We definitely want to have you on the podcast again eventually down the road. And hopefully when the borders open up, we'll figure it out from there.
Definitely. We got to make it back up. Somebody got to get married and have a baby so I come up there and celebrate with them.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I think we've been walled out of the U.S. currently. I don't think Canadians are allowed.
Eventually things will normalize.
Things will though. Yeah.
I appreciate it though, guys. It was awesome.
All right. Thanks everybody.